Shikues të nderuar, mirëmbrëma dhe mirë se vini në emisionin Jeta në Kosovë. Në fakt sonte jemi jashtë Kosovës. Është kjo jeta në botë. Jemi në një anije në lumin Thames, në qendër të Londrës, qytet ky i banuar prej 17 milion njerëzve, prej cilëve 50 deri 100.000 janë shqiptar. Mirë po, kur je në Prishtinë dhe lexon për shqiptarët që jetojnë në Angli, lajmet që i marrim andej janë një kronik e pandërprerë e gjykimeve të shqiptarëve për krim të organizuar, trafikim të prostitutave, trafikim të drogës, e tjera, e tjera. Kjo nuk është as pak informate këndshme, me e thonë këtu para kësaj publike me të cilin jam sot, të cilët janë kryesisht student, artista, inxhinier e aktivista të brengosur për pasojat e këtij imazhi në komunitetin shqiptar në përgjithësi. Panelistët e mi sonte janë Brikena Muharremi, avokate dhe autore nga Mitrovica që jeton që 11 vjet në Londer dhe është aktive në komunitetin shqiptar në Angli. Scarlett McGwire, eksperte në relacione publike, cila i këshillon anëtarët e parlamentit në Angli e në Kosovë lidhur me relacionet e tyre me media. Lale Merdetvula, fotografe shqiptaro-angleze e cila ka ndërtuar një imazh shumë poetik të fotografive të saj për shqiptarët se sa imazhi për cilin flasim sot. Xhema Xhuma, menaxher ndërkombëtar i mbrojtjes për Këshillin e Refugjatëve, organizatës më të madhe jo qeveritare në Angli që i mbron të drejtat e refugjatëve. Gjithashtu janë ftuar të diskutojnë Daut Dauti, ish zëdhënësi i qeverisë së Kosovës dhe Rath Joni, përfaqësues i lëvizjes mjaft në Londer. I would start off, Brikena, with you. Can you explain why is there so much bad press for Albanians in UK? Do you encounter it? Do you think we have an image problem or a problem as a society?
It's true that reports have been made by the media. The media has reported on cases where Albanians have been defendants in the courts and have been convicted of criminal offences, sometimes of some very, very serious offences. No doubt that for such serious cases to be reported in the press, no doubt that that will contribute towards a perception by a number of people or a class of people about Albanians generally, but I would like to avoid generalizing.
Scarlett, do you hear about these other Albanians, apart from the ones you read in the paper, living here in the UK, other majority?
No, I think most people in Britain are barely aware that there's an Albanian community, that they think there's an Albanian mafia who do the people trafficking and the sex trafficking, so much so that it's now a standard fare of television programs about immigration that you'll have Albanians in them. I think it's really important to understand that in Britain, most people do not think of an Albanian as a Kosovan. We think that people who come from Kosovo are Kosovans and people who come from Albania are Albanians. Most people in Britain do not even know that the countries are next to each other, right? So there's a very different attitude to Albanians, who are the people traffickers, and Kosovans, who I'm afraid aren't that much more popular. We vaguely know that we went to war over it, but then we had lots and lots of refugees coming in, and so we had lots of people coming in on social security benefits. And I remember going out to Kosovo and a taxi driver saying to me, I didn't know there was anybody left. I thought they were all over here. So the perceptions of each are very different. But if you asked a British person where an Albanian came from, it would not occur to them that they came from Kosovo.
Lale, through your photographs, you show the Albanian tradition of these images where they're in natural, idyllic habitat of Kosovo and Albania. But what happens when people are uprooted from that tradition and actually come here? And when you ask people from Pristina, they say it is Albanians from Albania doing it. You ask people from Tirana, they say it's actually Northern Albanians doing it. So it's actually the most traditional conservative people for whom actually values of family and tradition are very important. They come here and deal with something like selling women, which is out of perception from the places where they come from. How do we square this tradition where the place we've left versus what we find these people do here?
Well, my photographs are about this Albanian tradition, this strong traditions like the family, all the things that you've just talked about. And the people that come over from Albania and Kosovo have sometimes experienced it, but sometimes they've had very difficult lives. And they turn to crime because they've experienced difficult lives, like living in poverty in Albania or being brutalized by the Yugoslav regime in Kosovo. I mean, I've traveled, I've lived in Kosovo, I've lived in Albania, and I've spent a lot of time there, and I've spoken to a lot of people. And it's sort of the criminality has been going on for many years, because I worked even in Hamburg and in Germany with some of the with the BBC crew, and when we looked at the sort of criminality of the Kosovo Albanians. So there's strong criminality from both sides, and I think it's due to the incredibly difficult regimes that both have had to live under, the communist regime and then the Serbian oppression.
But Brikena talked about opportunities. Once they're given the opportunities and they're out there, or are they given opportunities? Why is it crime the first thing?
Well, they're not given opportunity. Anybody going to Germany, first of all, the Germans, it's very difficult to integrate into German society. And if you're given the offer to wash plates for almost nothing or sell drugs and earn a lot of money, I think we'd all do that. I mean, if you had that, background where you didn't have privileges.
Xhema, it's obvious that it's not only Albanians that have encountered this problem in UK. There's been different generations of either reference to Sicilian mafia, Turkish mafia, Jamaican one. How does one target this? I mean, is there something that can be done to improve the image, basically, or is it just Albanians' turn and we got to live with it?
I think it's really important to put the current Albanian portrayal in the media in the context of the media's general portrayal of refugee and asylum-seeking communities. It's incredibly biased negative coverage that you get across the board, and as we know, the media is always on the lookout for negative news stories. They're obsessed with criminality, so any opportunity to scapegoat foreign communities and associate with them with criminality is taken up, and I would absolutely dispute that Albanians are more involved in criminality than any other community in this country. I've seen no evidence at all to justify that. I also think there's no evidence to show that they're more engaged in criminality than the host population, the indigenous population. What I think is needed, and what I think a lot of Albanian community organisations in this country do very well but need more support doing, is to put out positive images of Albanians in society, to create opportunities for people who read the media to see the real stories about your average Albanian in this country, as opposed to this tiny minority who are involved in criminality.
But maybe an average Albanian is not a story.
I think local media particularly, there are really good opportunities to work with local media to get positive images, positive stories into the paper. I think it takes a lot more work with the national press, but there certainly are opportunities, and at the Refugee Council that's something we try very hard to do. And if you look at what happened in 1999-2000, the British media was incredibly positive about the Kosovars who were coming to this country. There was overwhelming support and public sympathy. And I think there's lessons that need to be learnt from that time, and we need to be trying to apply them to the current context.
But how long can that sympathy go on?
I mean, I agree that the sympathy of the time has been subsumed into the general negativity that is in the media when it comes to these sorts of issues. But I think it needs government to take leadership in dispelling these myths. It needs NGOs, civil society organisations, community organisations and communities themselves to work together to make sure that we're getting the facts out and we're not having perpetual myth and misinformation in the media that feeds people's prejudices.
However, I would play a bit of devil's advocate here and say that actually the government, even the government sources, not only the media sources, like for example the UK threat assessment in 2003 produced by National Criminal Intelligence Service, says there are signs that criminals from the Balkans, especially ethnic Albanians, where there is a large vice trade, are seeking to gain control of the trade in the UK. They are doing so particularly by taking over ownership of brothels and saunas, and are prepared to use violence to achieve this. and this is not a tabloid press. I mean, how do you differ with what is fact and what is exaggeration?
I think,
is this fact?
I mean, I think you have to know about the incidents to which this goes on. You can point to a few high-profile, highly connected criminal gangs but for Albania, but you can also do it for other communities, and it's about the extent to which you balance that with the overwhelming majority who have nothing to do with criminality. I think it's just that people enjoy hearing stories of vice and criminality, and it feeds a fear in them, and it's something that is incredibly difficult to tackle.
Since the new legislation in 2004, we've run 20 proactive operations against traffickers. Of those, 9 of the operations have involved Albanians. But what's interesting is we don't find very many female Albanians who've been trafficked. And so what we see is the Albanians tend not to get involved in the actual trafficking and facilitation of the females being brought across Europe by various methods. But what they do is buy the females off of the traffickers once they arrive in the country, and will then arrange them to work from various premises, not just in London, but right across the UK.
Grupet kriminale shqiptare kanë gjetur një terren të përshtatshëm për të zhvilluar aktivitetin e tyre kriminal në Britaninë e Madhe. Siç e thash në fillim, biznesi kryesor, aktiviteti kryesor kriminal i shqiptarëve në Britaninë e Madhe është prostitucioni. Pse pikërisht prostitucioni? Sepse këtu ka market. Këtu sipas statistikave, nëse do referohem statistikave të publikuar media britanike, 80.000 meshkuj çdo javë paguajnë për seks. Pra, ka një uri për prostituta. Pikërisht grupet kriminale shqiptare e kanë shfrytzuar këtë kërkesë të madhe, këtë treg për prostitucion, dhe pikërisht janë fokusuar këtu.
Ideally, we would love, to have more interaction with the Albanian community, but clearly that's difficult. I mean, again, because of the language barriers, so we rely heavily on the press to get our messages out into the community in Albania. We work closely with the Albanian authorities to try and get messages into the community, but it is very difficult, and certainly there will be this distrust of the police because they've never met the British police before, but they're barriers that we need to overcome, and it's an ongoing process really. It's something that we're working very hard to do.
Të gjithë ne e dim se cilët janë njerëzit në komunitetin tonë, të cilët merren me aktivitete kriminale, dhe shumë pak nga komuniteti jonë guxon të bashkëpunojnë me policinë në mënyrë anonime për t'i thënë ndalë këtyre njerëzve të cilët po dita ditës po na e përkeqëson, po na e nxin imazhin e shqiptarëve në Britaninë e Madhe.
My experience is that the gangs of Albanians that we've dealt with are primarily involved in the trafficking trade. But as I said, they don't actually facilitate the entry into the country. It's more about buying the women once they're here and then corrupting them and coercing them into that way of living, really.
Pse media britanike është dashuruar kaq shumë mbrapa gangsterëve shqiptarë, dhe përgjigjja e tij që është shumë e thjeshtë, më tha: "Shiko Muhamet, në vitin 1963 ne u morëm me vëllezërit Ronin Regjikrej. Patëm shumë materiale, krimit e atyre ishin tepër të tmerrshme dhe ne u morëm me ata. Kur mbaroi koha atyre ne u morëm me xhamajkianët, u morëm me turqit dhe më pas me mafian ruse, me krimet e tyre. Ndërsa tani neve, sipas Keith Davkans, media britanike ka qenë në kërkim të grupeve të reja kriminale dhe pikërisht futja në skenë e grupeve kriminale shqiptare që nga viti 1998 dhe deri më sot ka bërë që media të jetë dashuruar në thonjza mbas grupeve kriminale shqiptare, për vetë faktin se grupet kriminale shqiptare janë të dhunshme dhe të qenë të dhunshëm i bën ata më të prekshëm, më të kërkuar nga media britanike. Kjo është e gjitha.
I think that the degree of violence is certainly disturbing. The level of control and manipulation used against those females, the fact that they have no respect for the females as human beings. They're very hard people in terms of the way they treat other people, other human beings. So that's quite shocking, really. And it's clear that when we arrest them, that they have no fear of the English legal system, although they go to prison for great lengths of time. The last team that we arrested received 65 years in prison for 5 people, which is a substantial prison sentence. But they just accept that. as an occupational hazard. That if you engage in this criminality, you will go to prison for a long time.
Deri më tani në Britaninë e Madhe janë të dënuar më shumë se 30 shteta shqiptar për krimin e shfrytëzimit të prostitucionit, me një total dënimesh mbi 250 vjet.
There were Lithuanian women trafficked into the country by Lithuanians, then the Albanians were buying the women off of the Lithuanians and forcing them into prostitution by taking their passports off them, by that sort of fear factor that they rule by.
Është I drejtë konstatimi I oficerëve të Scotland Yardit. Nga tregimi që më bën nga oficerët e policisë që investiguan këtë rast, më tha se Coli kishte thënë vajzës, nuk po shko të dëmtoj në fytyrë, se e di që nëse do dëmtoj në fytyrë, ty do të prishi bukuria, askush nuk do shkoj me ty si prostitut. Por çfarë bëri? I preu gishtin. Në një rast, një vajzë e cila u mor peng nga një grup shqiptarësh, u holl nga kati I tret, I një ndërtesësh, shkojnë polici, denoncojnë shqiptarët, pra të qunurit të dhunshëm bën që edhe grupet e tjera kriminale, kur I përbën fjalën Albanian, ata tërhiqen.
I mean, we have Albanian interpreters in this country, but I appreciate that it's very difficult for them because quite often the people that they're dealing with will know who the interpreter is, will know their family back in Albania. So, you know, we try and avoid that, and if we think the interpreters are vulnerable, we wouldn't use them. You know, we'd find interpreters from elsewhere. But the language is a real difficult challenge for us to overcome.
Përfaqësohet nga gjithçka, ka njerëz unë nuk jam në gjendje them ka nga Kosova, ka nga Shqipëria, sepse ka pasur raste që ka pasur tutor nga Kosova, ka pas nga Maqedonia, ka pas nga Shqipëria. Pra, krimi shqiptar është I të gjitha trevave.
What we're finding, we're uncovering more intelligence, and it's just not Albanians. You know, there's a whole range of nationalities involved in this particular crime. You know, from Eastern Europe, from Thailand, from Africa, UK nationals. So I wouldn't want to stigmatise, you know, Albanians to say that, you know, they're dominating the sex trade.
Nuk kemi të bëjmë me një mafje shqiptare, kemi të bëjmë me grupe kriminale të organizuara dhe me individ. Organizatat kriminale shqiptare nuk funksionojnë siç funksionon mafja italiane që në majtë të piramidës është dikush I cili kontrollon, nuk është aspekt e vërtet që është mafja, janë thjesht grupe të organizuara, të cilët janë përqendruar kryesisht në prostitucion.
I have to say, you know, when we arrest the Albanians that we have, there is no evidence there that this is really high-tech organised criminality, you know, mafia organised gangs. It's individuals or groups of individuals who've got together and seen a niche in the market. There's a demand and they provide a supply to that demand.
Scarlett?
I mean, I think if you look at the Italians, I mean, where the word mafia did come from, I mean, although there was questions about the Italian mafia, there was no question in Britain that the Italians who lived here were by and large just ordinary Europeans like anybody else. And in fact, I mean, Britain always had a very good relationship with Italians. The other day I was reading in the newspaper about a Kosovan girl who I think got top marks in some English exam, national English exam, who hadn't spoken English before the age of 12. And actually that is the way to begin to turn it. I mean, I think you're absolutely right, there's nothing that the Albanian community can do about the people traffickers and the drugs and the sex. But what they have to do is they have to build up an image of the people that we have here, and the people from Kosovo and Albania, many of whom I've met who do not live on benefits. They have jobs, they do well, but actually, I mean, I was talking to somebody earlier who said you don't know each other, and the problem with the Albanian community is you're not working together to try and change the perception.
Brikena, why isn't that community more organized?
Well, the Albanian community is a new community, I would say a relatively new community in the UK. For a few years there wasn't much activity, community activity as such. But recently, I am aware of organizations and of groups of people that have actually come together to do something about...
So why has this need suddenly come all of a sudden?
Well, you must remember that the war in Kosovo is again relatively recent. It ended in 1999. People that came to the UK around at that time came from that region, came from Kosovo. The majority of the Albanians, I would say, came from a country that was torn apart by a war. Therefore, people had a lot to do when they arrived here in terms of their personal, in terms of achieving a personal stability. They had to do a lot in that respect before they started to actually contribute to the community through other work.
People who will be watching this program may be young Albanian men and women in Kosovo and Albania. You know, what would you say to those people who would actually think that finding a job is a good excuse for getting asylum?
Well, this isn't just the Albanians. I mean, we have people from Asia, we have people from Africa, we have people from the Balkans coming here illegally all the time, and Britain is very anti-immigrant. I mean, as you say, and there is no question. I mean, I think one of the problems for Albanians as opposed to Kosovans is that for a long time Kosovans could come here because of what was happening in Kosovo with Milosevic, and the Albanians always had to come here illegally because they didn't have skills to sell and they had poverty to leave. We have, you know, in Britain, anybody in this audience just needs to walk down the street. There are people from everywhere in the world. There are people from many, many poor countries. Albania is not nearly the poorest. I mean, it might be very poor for Europe. And so actually, I mean, people did feel we fought in Kosovo so that you could live in Kosovo. And there is that feeling of, why are you then coming over here? I have incredible...
Why are Poles coming over here and Albanians can't?
Because they're in the they're in the European Union. I mean, you know, that's the law, right? And we're about to have Romania and Bulgaria. We do have an awful lot of Poles, and it's legal. When Albanians and frankly now Kosovans come over, it is illegal, and you know that's the law.
So how do we escape, Xhema? How do we escape this actually cycle of illegality? They're immediately put into illegality, and actually there is no chance to think about image or having a community with any better image, like be at least the good plumbers or builders like the Polish are building. There is just no chance because they need to get into illegal work.
I think one thing that it's really important to distinguish, and that's very poorly understood by your average person, be they in Albania or in the UK, is that asylum is something that is completely distinct from other forms of economic migration. Asylum is an institution. It's saved millions of people's lives across the world. It's about protecting people who are fleeing persecution in their home country. It's about people who cannot live in their country of origin because they are not safe and their state will not protect them or can't protect them. Economic migration is another issue, and the asylum route is completely inappropriate for people who aren't fleeing persecution. I think that the issue of illegal immigration is something that obviously as the Refugee Council we don't focus on, but I think there clearly need to be more legal routes into this country. There needs to be information about what those routes are, so people do not have this awful existence where they're liable to detention, to arrest, to deportation, because they're living on the margins of society. It's an incredibly difficult existence for anybody in this country if you have no status.
But actually, you say about how Kosovo, you know, that Albanians, it's a young community. Many thousands of Kosovans came over here completely legally because they were seeking asylum. It's not like the Albanians who've always had to come in illegally because it was a matter of poverty. And what has surprised me is that that there isn't a Kosovan community. I mean, I know a lot of Kosovans. They have good job, or any sort of job, they work very hard, they're fine. But the community coming together, and I think to say that it's only 12 years old actually isn't good enough anymore. I mean, it's a community that was welcomed initially, right? Whatever has changed. And so I do think that the Kosovan community, possibly it went in itself. I mean, the problem with a lot of communities is that you're much more interested in what goes on at home than what's happening here. And actually there is a choice. I mean, of course you always have to be both, but one has to understand that the only way to deal with your image here is to concentrate on Britain and to pull, in particular, the Kosovan community, who has to be generous to the Albanians and sort out what you're going to do.
At this point, I have many questions for you, but I'd like to open the debate to the audience for comments and questions.
I think we can't improve our image as long as we have members of parliament in Albania fighting in front of cameras. I mean, that's a reality. And also in Kosovo, it's not much better situation. So in order to improve our image, we have to work, people in Kosovo, Albanian government and government in Kosovo, they have to improve their image for outside the Kosovo or Albania.
So are you saying that you're not only embarrassed of what happens here, actually what happens back home you're embarrassed of?
Yeah, I'm for that. We have to live with bad image here. And it's, as Rath said, minority of people who are criminals and are drug dealers. Majority are very hard-working people here. I mean, don't forget, maybe people in the panel, they know better, but how Australia was created. I mean, I did some research for some people in Australia, and apparently their great-grandfather was a murderer. And then you have a lot of cases in Australia, they settled in Australia from this country.
But a century ago,
yeah.
not in 21st century.
No, we are late.
We are late. Okay. Anybody else? We have.
Well, it has been interesting to listen to you ladies how very, very well you unfold the problem. But speaking about the crime here, we have to have in mind two elements here. We have to have in mind the British state institutions and the Albanian community here. And the crime committed by some Albanians here, it's not a problem for the state institution as much as it is for the Albanian community here, because if they were not the Albanians doing it, someone else would be, occupying those places.
But it bothers us.
It does bother us because, the sort of crime which has been committed is, it sells very much into the press. That's and very well. That's the problem. But if we want to reduce this problem, if we want, to deal properly with it, we have, to get engaged ourselves in this community which is being established still, a community which was twice very much in the level of the front pages everywhere in the press. First time it was in the front pages because of the war in Kosovo, and that Albanians and Kosovans had a very good press. And the second one, the press in a way waited, to happen something bad, and to.
But that's precisely the impression we have in Kosovo. Then, whenever there is a humanitarian crisis, to collect money or money for the weapons or for food, the diaspora gets together. There's no other image of an intellectual diaspora out there. There's that image of singing, dancing, and collecting money.
Well, if they think that way, they are wrong, but maybe in the second part we'll discuss this problem and see that there is another face of diaspora as well. But what I want to emphasize here is that the Albanians should get better organizing communities and deal with every problem. The problem they have with the crime at the moment is a problem which will disappear soon. And it is, of course, I'm not saying that it is not our fault. It is partly the fault of the Albanians, but will soon disappear. I don't think we have enough time here to discuss the roots and the reasons why we have this. But it's not, I believe that it's not the fault of the Albanians.
I'm Sarah Gaush, I work at Rolls-Royce. I just wanted to say that I don't think our image is as bad as we're implying here in UK. I think there are certain individuals that committed these crimes, but I shouldn't feel embarrassed for the crimes they have committed. And as Ms. Vula says, that if you have the choice of these criminals, if they have the choice of maybe selling drugs or washing dishes for nothing, I think that's mainly, I would wash dishes for nothing because it's a personal, if you're inclined to commit crimes, you would commit crimes wherever you are. So they would commit crimes whether they in Kosovo, in Albania, or wherever they are, they're going to commit crimes if they're inclined to commit crimes. For decent people, who they would, they're going to work and find a way to when they, they life basically live a decent life wherever they are. So I don't think we can judge that in that basis. So.
But you become decent because you're brought up, you know, your mother tells you that's wrong. I've been to Kukus and Borel and all these places and some of the outskirts in Jakova, and I've lived in villages and I've seen, you know, what has happened to some people and how they, you know, can turn easily to crime. Another thing is, I've just observed, you know, the good thing about Albanians is that they help each other and they're very strong and brotherly. And that inspired me to do all my artwork and go there.
I just want to say that as a new community, I think we've done pretty well. I think a lot of people, there's so many people who've done very well. A lot of students have gone to top universities, they have very good jobs, and of course they're not going to go and expose themselves and say, look how well I've done.
But we've never heard about them, honestly. We don't know a thing about them.
But I mean, we're not going to go and expose, look what I've done, I'm carrying on with my life. And so we just want to, I think we integrated much better than any other community, like the Indian community, or I'm sure that it's taken them much longer than it's taken us.
Yes, Albanians stick together and they do a lot for each other, but while the Metropolitan Police actually has the other problem of not being able to penetrate and people being actually even people, Albanians who work for the police services, not being able to tell their friends because of the stigma. Then why is it not that we do for each other only and not beyond for the laws of this country, which are obviously not Milosevic, not Enver Hoxha? Why can we not transfer that doing for each other to doing right, to actually maybe reporting crime? Why is that such a stigma?
That is a good point, you know, and that's a way to maybe look forward and try and get people to bring other people in and, you know, expose other Albanians.
Brikena, would you have an answer to that?
It is an important issue because people that live in a country should try and integrate, should be part of the community where they live, and the people have to understand that they can't progress without that awareness that they have obligations as members of a community, and that they should not feel that the institutions are there to catch them because
but they are. If they're criminals, they are there.
Well, well, we're not talking about. Yeah. Well, if we talk about the community in general, then we are talking about members of a community that aren't willing to or are reluctant to cooperate or to report crime.
Tell me honestly, would you tell on another Albanian committing crime? Would you tell on?
Well, I am a citizen of this country, and I observe my duties and obligations as a citizen. I also observe my obligations as a professional. I think that's a matter for a personal matter for each person, and a person should do what they think is right.
But we culturally think that's not right.
It's
don't we?
Again, it's a personal matter. You cannot generalize. Each person should know what their values are and what their obligations are.
We have a question over there, Urna.
Okay, Ismail Kadri says that the bad news, the good news don't make news, the bad news make news, and the bad news sell advertising. And bad news sell advertising. That's the reason why the papers will pick us, and we are the next in the queue for bad publicity, unfortunately. But I think we should direct our energies to see what people like Brikena and Sarah have achieved on top of their careers, rather than go on, killing ourselves about what a few criminals are doing. I mean, that's their job. That's what they do for a living. Let the police deal with it.
I'm visiting Pancha, and I'm a student here in London. Also a member of the organization called Spesa Program, or rather charity. And just to raise 2 quick points here. We were talking about everything, but we failed to mention also the British institutions such as Home Office being inefficient in dealing, first of all, with control of migration, or rather criminals coming over and using fake passports and everything, but also restricting rights to the immigrants or refugees and asylum seekers. Maybe Xhema is more familiar with these things. For example, forbidding people to work, and if you limit these things, people will not have any other options than to turn to criminal. I mean, I'm not trying to defend them.
If we were a rich country, wouldn't we limit it? Wouldn't we want people coming over to take our jobs?
No, fair enough, that's the point, but I mean, rather than making people be lazy and being forced to take benefits, which they're not that helpful as well, but rather than encouraging them to work, and that's beneficial for the government, but also for the budget, because the taxes that people pay will be much more. And also regarding the community, it's up and coming, because we, for example, there's a charity, we won the Queen's Award for 2006 this year as one of the best charities in London. And we have about 600 members of Albanian community all over the region, from Kosovo, from Macedonia, from Albania, and everything. So it's fresh, but it's optimistic.
Thank you for your point. That's a very good point. Any final points from panelists that you'd like to react to that?
Actually, I'd like to say that all of you are sort of feeling terribly sorry for yourselves. I mean, can you imagine what it's like to be a Muslim in Britain? I mean, I know many of you are, but actually what's interesting is we never think of Albanians as Muslims. And they had 4 suicide bombers, and the whole community is being blamed. And they're being told by the government that they have to police their community because it's their fault that these 4 suicide bombers were brought up in their community. And I just think that what you have to understand is that Britain is pretty xenophobic. You're absolutely right. They're pretty anti-immigration. They're very wary of foreigners. The media whips all this up for political purposes. And actually, by and large, I mean, you do have some terrible Albanians, like every community has terrible people in it, but by and large, actually, we don't even think about Albanians. But when you say you've got a charity which has won the Queen's Award, what does that charity do?
Well, we help the community to integrate into society.
Yeah, but you see, the charity only does things for Albanians. That's what I'm saying, is that actually, if you want to improve your image, think about doing things for other people.
Can I make a point about
go ahead.
organisations from the perception of the Refugee Council? Because before I came here tonight, I went to ask colleagues in our community development team which organisations do you know community organisations, Albanians, Kosovars, and they reeled off a list of vibrant community organisations, including yours, sir, who they said were making a fantastic contribution both to Albanians living in this country as well as to wider intercultural relations between host communities and the Albanian communities that are here. So certainly from our perspective, there's a perception that there's a lot of organisation that's gone on. Funding is always a problem, but there's a wealth of expertise and experience and great community development that's happening at the moment. So I wouldn't like to portray it as all one-sided.
Jeta?
Can I just question?
Answer the question, yes.
Why? I mean, the reason why the organization exists, we just came to the charity status this year. But the reason why is because there was a need for the Albanian community to be helped in this country. So there are a lot of people who don't know English, who don't know the system, how it works. Hence, that's why the organization was formed. With hard work of Jeta and other people there. So
I think but have you ever thought of anything more creative in a sense? I think what Scarlett is aiming for as well is a year of status. You're a Kosovan. I mean, what can Shpresa do that can actually do something which Albanians in Kosovo would benefit from it, the image itself?
Mainly concentrated in the community rather than taking political stance. That's a different story. One of the aims later on is to build up on the PR stance for Albanians in England to improve our image as such overall.
Okay, that man has been having his hand up.
I disagree with the point that they said that, as they said, like we should stick. First of all, we should recognize how is media in Britain is accepting and participating Albanians and Kosovars. I also strongly believe that there is a different perceptions for Kosovars and Albanians. During this year that I lived in Brighton and traveled a lot in London, there is a distinction. And I think that we should stick and recognize the criminality.
Tom Brikena, I'm a choreographer. I've been living in the UK for the last 12 years. I've got 2 points to make very quickly. First of all, let's not stick our heads in the sand. We are all sort of, in one way or another, being part of this community. And if we go back to our culture, we love sitting in cafes, having drinks, and talk about politics. But mostly we love talking about the deeds. And in my belief, there is an Eastern European sort of trend. If you break the law, that's seen by some communities like, oh, that's cool, that's great. So we talk about this. So these people who come and traffic people or break the law here are in amongst us, and we should not stick our heads in the sand. The previous speaker just spoke about community intelligence, and we can do quite a lot about that. This is one point, and the other point is about doing something individually or as a group, not only with the Albanian community, and I totally agree with that. Expressa program is doing quite a lot, but actually we as individuals, as artists, as for example Lale Merdetvula has opened lots of exhibitions, and that's a good publicity for Albanians to really show that how good we do.
Are you happy with how much publicity is given to you when you choreograph and dance?
Well, I don't have to be given publicity. I just grab it and take it myself. Just on the 18th of July, how many days ago, there was a big event at Wembley Arena, and there were 2,500 people who were organized by my own company. And there were probably 5 Albanians, all of that.
But which Albanian paper did a story on you?
I did send information, but it seems like if there is no crime or if there is not. So it's on both sides of the spectrum. Also in Albania, people are more interested in interviewing people who've got very interesting things, or the ones who want to do commercial stuff instead of working with communities. So these were my 2 points.
Okay. The very fact that we are holding, or we are organizing a TV program for an Albanian audience in your own language, in your own country, shows a high level of integration of the Albanian citizens in here. Try and have a program of the BBC in Tirana with British citizens living in Albania, speaking in Albanian. You will never have it in a million years. So you cannot say that the Albanian community is not integrated in here. We wake up with BBC World on our TV, we read the Sunday Times that sometimes degrades us, and we work with the members of Parliament, of the British Parliament. We watch Prime Minister's questions on Wednesdays as well, and we can lecture some of the British citizens.
But are you talking for the whole of society, or for
no? But I think most of the Albanians. I think most of the Albanians in here are very well integrated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alvan. I'm a student at the University of Sussex. My opinion here, general opinion from this debate, is that there's too much self-protection in this room here. Nobody wants to accept the reality. Criminals are somewhere else, not part of our community. I think there's too much justification, and Mr. Ralph here just overprotective. I don't think that's the truth. I mean, let's look at this in a broader context. The Albanian mafia is pretty strong in Germany, it's pretty strong in Switzerland, it's pretty strong in the US. Probably there's Albanian mafia in China, South Africa. Everybody knows. I mean, who knows? There's lots of crime in Kosovo, lots of crime in Albania. I'm not saying that's only amongst Albanians, but there's lots of crime. So is this a general trend? And we need to look at it. I don't think there's time for justification right now. First of all, we need to recognize it. Then we start dealing with it. And I don't think we're recognizing it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I work at News International, and already I'm not disputing the figures from Crown Court prosecutions or from the Germany figures, 14 out of 20. But as far as I know, and as far as you're saying, there are 54,000 immigrants, just roughly, here, which we live and work here. So isn't that for police to sort out this problem? If they know these figures and these statistics, they can sort it out within a limited time, within a very short time. So we will not be in national press. So on and off, non-stop. We don't have to read people like Adrian Jill going in a couple of days in Albania and writing offensive language about Albania, or saying Albanians live like in 16th century. So police can do their best if they have these figures, and they have these figures there. So we are a very small community here. It's not a 2 million people community like an Asian community or Africans or whatever like that. So it's for police to sort out this once and forever.
But police is saying that small community is very protective and it's not letting them in. Would you react to that?
I understand that. But as far as I know, we got large amount of Albanian refugees or immigrants came in '96 and in 2000. This is the largest groups. We still have people coming on and off, but this is the largest. So if these criminals are caught, we don't have people with the next day they replace them. No, it's the same people. We don't have people coming today, and if tomorrow a gang group is caught, like the person who came yesterday is going to replace him straight away, and it will carry on, will continue like in 12 years. So it's for police to sort out these problems, and we will not be mentioned in this media, especially national press.
Për të dëshmuar që me të vërtet derisa kemi qenë këtu nuk e kemi kalu gjithë kohën duke i hulumtu krimin dhe kriminalët, mirë po kemi gjetë edhe raste pozitive, po shkojmë në reportazhin tonë të punuar nga Krenar Gashi dhe Rjeti Ballkanik për kastari hulumtuese në teren.
Kjo është Londra, kryeqyteti i Britanisë së Madhe, një shteti me 60 milion banor, në mesin të cilëve jetojnë edhe afër 60.000 shqiptarë. Emigrimi i shqiptarëve në Britani ka filluar në fillim të viteve 90, ndërsa ka arritur kulmin gjatë luftës në Kosovë në vitin 99. Ani pse shumë pjesëtarë të komunitetit shqiptar në Britani janë profesionistë të suksesshëm të profileve të ndryshme, në shoqërinë britanike është krijuar një imazh negativ për ta. Në këtë imazh, pas veprimtarisë ilegale të disa individëve shqiptar, ka ndikuar dukshëm edhe propaganda e forcave djalltiste në Britani, në veçanti ajo e shtypit britanik. Historiani i shuar Noel Malcolm është i këtij mendimi.
Çka mund të them, besoj se problemi është me shtypin britanik dhe jo veçanërisht me shqiptarët. Në çdo populate, në çdo grup ka një pakicë vogle kriminale. Kuptohet. Por e di se shumica e madhe e shqiptarëve këtu janë njerëz të mirë që punojnë mirë.
Përparim Roma është një arkitekt nga Kosova që jeton dhe punon në Britani. Kompania që ai drejton ka bërë një plan sipas të cilit do të rindërtohej plotësisht qendra e Prishtinës, prej muzeut te teatri e deri te qafa.
Nuk është projekti më të madh cilin e kemi bërë, por projekti me të cilin unë mburem më shumë gjithse për arsye se domethënë kam dalë prej Kosovës si vogël, e kam lënë qytetin edhe ku nana ndoshta kam menuar që s'kthehem kurrë, kështu që jam kthyer dhe kam punuar në qytetin në cilin jam lind, kështu që ajo për mua është arritja më e madhe. Projekt menaxherja e cila ka qenë projekt menaxhere për London Olympic Bid për lojrat olimpike, ajo ka qenë edhe projekt menaxhere për qendrën në Prishtinë. Edhe shpresoj që edhe më tutje do të jem i kyçur në zhvillimin e qytetit Prishtinës.
Por a thua është më lehtë të ristrukturohet një qytet i mbindërtuar siç është Prishtina, sesa të përmirësohet imazhi negativ i shqiptarëve në Evropë?
Një shok me cilin në njëjtën kohë kemi dalë jashtë Kosovës. Ai ka shkuar në Gjermani, unë kam marrë në Londer. E kam marrë vesh masanej që shqiptarët në atë kohë, domethënë shqiptarët në Zvicër, në Gjermani, adin vjedhin, merren me drogë, merren me prostitucion. Mas 5 vitesh, po shpëtakohem me këtë shokun tim i cili ka qenë ashtu në zonë shumë i mirë në Gjevdëdod. Edhe për veti që ka bërë në Gjermani, tha jam hajnë. Thash, hajnë? Thash, qysh mëra hajnë ti? Hajnë, tha, po vjedhe, edhe profesionalisht, professional thief. Thash, edhe fillova me shoha, thash, po thash ti, thash, për shkak te, thash, une nuk po më me në zonë të zvicronet Gjermankat. Edhe, adina është të një farë mënyre, Tharë se po ikin si vetëm që janë kosovarë.
Sipas Ramës, kjo ndodh nga se shtetet tjera në Evropë nuk ua kanë mundësuar emigrantëve të punojnë legalisht. E për të ndihmuar ekonomikisht familjarët e tyre në Kosovë, shumë janë detyruar të merren me aktivitete ilegale. Mirë po, për shumë të tjerë, ky nuk është një arsyetim, nga se gjithmonë ka mënyra të ndershme për të fituar para. Amir Prebreza është nga shumë të rinj shqiptarë që jetojnë në Londer. Por për dallim prej shumë të tjerëve, arritja në Britani të Madhe nuk ka qenë realizim i ëndrave për Amirin.
Fillimi është i shterë, si normal si që thonë, posaçërisht për neve si korone për shembull që kom marrë të pa familje, kom marrë vetëm, o duhet mu adaptu me faktin që mu pajtu me faktin që për shembull familje nuk e kom pas për anë shoqërinë, gjitha gjërat që unë i kom njohur si kur i ri në Kosovë nuk kanë qenë më këtu për mua, dhe në duhet mu adaptu me këtë senet e reja. Fakultetin nuk kom ujtë me regjistru për shkaqet që nuk ka leju me regjistru fakultetin. Edhe tani punoj. Për shkak që nuk muna me regjistru fakultetin, nuk kam drejt për me regjistru fakultetin dhe më duhet me punu.
Besim Gërguri udhëheq organizatën UK Albanians, e cila ndihmon komunitetin shqiptar në Britani për çështje të ndryshme praktike. Ai tregon se si janë integruar shqiptarët në shoqërinë britanike.
Fillimisht kanë qenë shumë të njohur në hoteleri, shumë të kërkuar. E di vetë se vetë kam punuar, e di ç'është është ajo. Kanë qenë punëtorë shumë mirë. Tash nuk ka shumë shqiptar në hoteleri. Shqiptarët tash kanë shku në faza tjera të zhvillimit si çdo komunitet që shkon. Tash ka shqiptarë që kanë shumë dyqane private, kanë shumë lavazhe. Duket që është shumë diçka thjesht, po shumë fitimprurse. Shumë, do të thotë shumë njerëz janë pasunu, kanë krijuar një standard mirë të jetës për veten e familjen e tyre vetëm me këtë biznes. Edhe dominon në Angli, në Londër sidomos shumica e lavazheve janë shqiptar. Kështu që është një diçka shumë pozitive, interesante edhe pozitive, dhe shpesh ka ndodhur më përmend në media një artikull ka qenë një person thotë shumë mirë, thotë sa mirë ka bërë Miloševići që i ka përzon shqiptar, thotë se s'kish pas kush më na la kerret.
Në Britani të Madhe jetojnë edhe shumë shqiptar që janë profesionistë të zot e të suksesshëm. Klentiana Mahmutaj është një baristere, avokate nivelit më të lartë në jurisprudencën britanike.
Fillimisht kur fillova universitetin për juridik, për ligj, siç thon këta këtu, është më e thjeshtë që të integrohesh në shoqërinë angleze dhe është më e thjeshtë që të pranohesh, sepse ideja e studentëve të huaj, të paktën në shkallë universitare, është një fenomen i njohur. Kështu që nuk përbën një problem, nuk përbën, le të themi, një kërcënim. Pastaj kur bëra masterin, e njëjta gjë ndodhi dhe atje, pasi dega në cilën unë specializova e drejta ndërkombëtare publike është një degë që tërheq studentë të huaj nga të gjithë vendet e botës dhe multikulturalizmi i universitetit ishte prap një fenomen i pranueshëm, një fenomen që kishte ndodhur prej kohësh. Megjithatë, sa më shumë fillon të ngrihesh, sa më shumë dhe fillon të rriten pretendimet, aq më skeptik bëhen vendalit këtu.
Avnira Pica është shqiptari më i shpejt në Angli. Ai shpesh arrin shpejtësinë prej 300 km/h, si pilot i Formula 3, me të cilën garon edhe në pistën e njohur Silverstone.
Kam pas rezultate shumë të mira, vitin e kaluar kam fituar disa gara, po ashtu edhe një vit përpara. Pra me punën time dhe po mendoj me sukses që kam pas deri me tani, arrita të mbritjen në Formula 3 në kampionatin britanik që do të zhvillohet si vjet.
Me pak fat dhe shumë angazhim, Avniu mendon që vitin e ardhshëm do të arrijë të garojë edhe në garën prestigjioze të Formula 1.
I would like to take final points from any of you before we end. Scarlett?
Right, I'd like to go back to what you were saying actually about victims. I think that making yourself victims is a very dangerous thing to do. I think it's very common in Kosovo. I don't know enough about Albania, right? And I certainly don't know enough about the diaspora. When I am in Kosovo, I get met all the time with, you know, but it's so terrible for us, you don't understand, we're so poor, which you are, but you know, you have to spend money on us. You know, one tries to point out that Africa and Asia actually are poorer. But it's not just Kosovo. Serbia sees itself as the victim. And look at the way it behaves. And look at Israel that sees itself as the victim and is now killing hundreds of people in Lebanon. And then the United States sees itself as the victim because of 9/11. And that's where victimhood takes you, right? It doesn't get you anywhere positive. Actually, you have to turn it around. And I think it's really, really important that one moves beyond feeling sorry and feeling that everybody is victimizing you, and you move forwards.
I thank you all, Brikena Muharremi, Scarlett McGwire, Lale Merdetvula, Xhema Xhuma, and the excellent audience that I had here with us tonight. Sorry if our thoughts have been a bit wobbly, like the ship that we were in, but this is all we have for you tonight, and I especially want to thank, since we're outside home, people that made this program possible, like as if we were at home. Very important were Digital Planet Production House with Eke Ramani as a representative, and UK Albanians with Besim Grguri as a representative. So I thank them for making the organization of this debate really possible in a big town where it's not so easy to get things done. But nevertheless, thank you all. I hope to see you in Kosovo and Albania back home. Bye. Kur jemi kthyer në Prishtinë, duke sjellur ndërmend përvojën tonë në Angli dhe të gjitha ato që I kemi ndëgjuar, nuk mund të mos e përmendim një dukuri që na ka lënë mbresa të thella. Shikojeni materialin në vijim.
I try to contact people who give genetic subjects in Pristina, and frankly they didn't want to see me because they're just afraid that I'm going to go there and take their jobs.
It's a government which is consisted by very amateur and unprofessional people, and they are afraid for people who know.
Also, my point is that if you don't have connections, like I don't, then it's very difficult. You know, I'm not implying that you have, but in general, if you don't have connections there.
I have been there in government, I have seen that there is no channel, even if these people want to go back privately, every initiative, every door will be blocked for them.
All the money that gets spent in Kosovo comes from outside.
The problem now is political, because of the government we have in Tirana, and especially one in Pristina, is that they are not ready to accept working with high qualified professionals, who come from high top universities from Britain.
Maybe we have high expectations when we go back now, that everyone's going to say to us that, oh, you graduated there, okay, take this position, make the changes.
It's a government which is consisted by very amateur and unprofessional people, and they are afraid for people who know.
We have some excellent individuals in here, as you've seen, in some top universities, top researchers, that the governments back home are not capable of exploring and of using properly for the benefit of the country. So I think there is a problem at the institutional level. I think there is a problem at individual level of corruption and jealousy from some government officials. And obviously, I think it's a challenge for Albania.
I'm a structural engineer. I design buildings.
Practical. How can a minister accept someone like the gentleman who just spoke, who is so qualified, and the minister or our officials haven't gone through secondary education there?
Jo vetëm në Angli, por e tërë diaspora shqiptare është përplot ekspert të lëmive të ndryshme. Njerëz të rinj, të cilët kanë ndërtuar karrierë të shkëlqyer profesionale në sfera të ndryshme, të shkencës e të artit. A janë të rinjt shqiptar që posedojnë aftësi, shkollim e përvojë profesionale të gatshëm të kthehen në Kosovë? A është Kosova e gatshme ta pranojë këtë tru të ri e të freskët? Cilat janë problemet e të ashtu quajturit brain gain, kthimit të trurit në Kosovë? Çka po bën qeveria kosovare për ta kthyer këtë tru të ri, tërë këtë potencial të madh në Kosovë? Kjo do të jetë tema e emisionit tonë të ardhshëm. Na dërgoni informata, na tregoni përvojat tuaja. Ne do të bëjmë që zëri juaj të ndëgjohet në RTK.
A ma mirë në Kosova në Amerikë.
Mbas disa viteve duke mos fituar mjaft pare për pëlqimin e vjerit tem, krejt familje ka vendosur që ka ardhur koha për unë të shkoj në Londer, të bëj lek ose funta për me qu në Kosovë. është shumë rëndësi të mbaj identitet kur bëhesh diaspor, edhe unë kam qenë i përgatitur. Por Londer ishte shumë e madh. Edhe shumë i çuditshme. Me çdo gjë të mbrapsht. Kulturën e anglezëve nuk ishte në nivel shumë i lartë. Edhe pse di anglisht, ka qenë edhe vështirë të kuptoj dialektin e tyre.
From where we say, when we want to say like hello, we say wagwan. Wagwan.
Wagwan.
Wagwan.
Mirë po, kam zbuluar befasit që kur s'kisha imagjinu. Shumë shpejt, kam nis me haru misionin tim. Prandaj kam vendos me rregullu nevojat ekzistencial mas pari. Kam gjet një banes, bukur i madh, plot me dhomë fletja, kuzhinë, zyra, bibliotek, magazin, studio, edhe banjo, 2 kat ma poshtë. Krejt për vetëm 500 funte në muaj. 500 funte në muaj? Edhe rryma duhet me pagu me hekur. Ndoshta kjo kishte qenë ideja mirë për kekun.
I can work for you. I can make the doner and the chabapa.
Ishte qartë që ka ardhur koha për të gjejë një vend punës.
I make a very good chabapa.
Yeah, no. Chabapa. No chabapa. Kebab.
Coffee, you're making coffee. I will work with you. I will work and make little coffee. Turk. Coffee Turk. No coffee? A chai. Chai Rus. I can work for you, like driver. I am good driver. On the other side, I drive. I can drive the bus.
Kam apliku të shumë biznesat, por ata nuk u vlerësuan ekspertizë që kam unë.
I can sell Coke.
I didn't get you. I want to ask.
To work. I want to work here and sell the Coke.
You want to sell the Coke?
You can give us your CV, yeah?
This the CV
Yeah.
of making coffee and the tea.
No.
And if something's good, yeah, you go bruh bruh.
Yeah.
Like, like a gun sign.
Like a gun sign, like a gunshot.
We have many guns.
Kam dëgju që shumë shqiptarët fitojnë pasurinë e tyre duke punuar si mafiash.
Hey, shko këto, është kjo rruga çbajt. I pari klap është kështu shkakten gocat, është ai dormeni u shqiptar.
Aha.
En bisedon me folme. You know what I'm saying?
Aha. Mu menzon krejt biznesin e tij. Hello, excuse me.
Vendosa që kjo ishte rrugë më e mirë për unë gjithashtu.
I am the new mafia. The mafia man.
Yes.
Do you want to work for me?
To do what?
For the, you know. I am boss, pay not so good, I am sorry. Just little business. I need the workers.
Sorry, I don't want to work.
I don't want to work either.
Dande you can meet a lot of them.
Ata muj me...
Ata mund diçka me punu me ty.
Jo, po unë s'po punoj me vajzat shqiptare.
Çfarë vajza don ti?
Kujt? Jo, Jona. Yes, hello. Excuse me.
Sorry, I'm in a rush.
Okay. If you want the ladies, I know. I take you to the Dean Road.
Dean Road.
The many nice ladies.
I'm not looking for ladies.
No, kam me qenë shumë e madh. Ju
mundeni
me punu për mu, nëse donë se po më dhyn apo den.
Por, përveç disa bodyguardët, ishte pa mundur të gjej bashkëpunëtorët. Edhe në fund, unë e kam bo krimi organizuar vetëm.
Ladies, I am the gigolo from the Kosove. You want to rent? Me qira, I'm very cheap.
Po prap, me pak sukses.
Do you want for renting me?
Yes, we are really rich. We want a gigolo.
I'm very, very reasonable gigolo, man.
Rezultatet kanë qenë të njëjtë duke shfaqur kulturën tonë.
kilometer janë shumë pak. Red and black, I dress the eagles on my chest. I'm proud to be Albanian. Shumë di me dritë, shumë di me dritë. Sa kam bëthën e mirë, shumë di me dritë. It's a rap music.
Si edhe duke punuar si aktivist politik.
The Tony Blair save the Kosovo. The NATO save the Kosovo. Thank you, and the Blair and the Bill Clinton. Thank you.
Okay, get rid of him too, and I'll talk to you.
There's nothing to get rid of him. Why get rid of him?
No.
He can do that. You're finished. You're off duty.
Not the nonsense. The freedom to speak.
You can't say he's talking.
Not the nonsense.
We don't want to hear about what a wonderful man Mr. Blair is. Thank you. Goodbye.
You watch the war on the TV, and we have the war in the house, and the house burning, and the people dead, and...
Son, shut up and go. We're not discussing with you. Bye.
Goodbye. Good luck. Thank you. The eagle.
Why are you wearing a t-shirt from Albania?
I am wearing this for the pride of it then.
Edhe e kam pas zër me bo shoqni me njerës.
Here, and I am looking for the friends, the students. Are you guys the students?
Por ndoshta nuk kam zgjedhur njerëz të duhur.
They're from Serbia.
You are?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. Maybe the next time we will drink a beer.
The place like
Like they say I'm the girl, and the boy said like that, and then he would like.
And then she'll dance on me.
And yeah, and then he would dance on me.
That's how they dance back in.
Jetën në Londer u dëshmu të jetë mjaft i vështirë. Edhe kam nisë të brengosëm për të ardhmen time. Një natë kam pa ëndër, ku takova me një imigrant lituaneze. Mikun tim imagjinar më ka përkujtuar që si Amerikan duke jetuar në Kosovë, në fakt unë jam ekspert për integrimin në vendet të huaj. Vetëm ish dash të aplikoj formulën njësoj si shqiptar në Londer. E nesërmja e kam filluar të bëj implementimin e 5 principit të dhëndërit për integrimi suksesshme në vend të huaj. Principi numër 1. Respektoni ligjet të vendit. Kjo është themeli edhe shumë rëndësi për integrimi suksesshëm në vend të huaj. Edhe nëse ju doket ligji pa lidhje, nuk doni të ballafaqoni me këtë njeri.
Okay, take your hand off me, please.
Oh, sorry about that. Welcome, how y'all doing? It's blessed to meet you.
Principi numër 2. Mësoni dialekt vendor.
Do any of you like to spit? To spit, no?
Kjo shumë të jesh për njeri, mos e bo debil. Tu me pas mua bel me njerëz, a kupton?
Wagon.
Are you cool, baby girl?
I'm pink.
Principi numër 3. Kontriboni për komunitetin të juaj të ri.
Look right. Thank you. Look right. Look left here. Look left. Look left. Hello, please mind the gap. Mind the gap between platform and train.
Pa marrë parasysh çfarë kontributin e bëni, duke punuar vullnetërisht për komunitetin të juaj të ri. Ju do të tregon që ju jeni qytetarë të vlefshme në këtë qytet të ri.
You need to ask the...
Edhe do të fitoni shokët.
The ashtray, need the ashtray.
Principi numër 4. Merrni pjesë në traditat kulturore të vendit. Duke marrë pjesë në traditat kulturore të vendit, do të fitoni shoqëni edhe respekt shumë më shpejt. Edhe kur nuk është e lehtë të adaptuar në disa zakonet, mos ki merak. Tash ti e bo angleze. Edhe në fund, principi numër 5. Bëheni shembull i mirë për paqë edhe tolerancë.
There is degradation. There is no democracy. Saddam Hussein, the weapons.
Israel today attack Ghana. We don't want the war again. We must live together with the enemy people.
Kjo është një princip shumë e rëndësishëm për imazhin e shqiptarit, si edhe amerikanët në përbot.
To forget those problems and to live together again, because it's a very small place we are living. We have the problem. Let's get back to the real issue. We have the problem with the Serbian people. We have the war with the Serbian people, and now we are after the war. And now we are after the war, and we are. And now we must live together. Serbian, no.
Edhe pse kam nisur të bëj integrimin më të suksesshëm duke përdorur 5 principet e dhëndrit për integrimin suksesshëm në vend të huaj. E kam vret që njerëzia jashtë Kosovës nuk janë as pak më paqësor, tolerant ose progresiv se sa neve.
Never mind.
Edhe kam marrë vesh se ka ardhur koha të kthehem pa turp në atë dhëotim Kosovë, ku nuk e kam pasurinë financiar, mirë po kam pasurinë e shpirt. Besoj se vjeri im do të jetë krenar me vendimin tim. Ku ka ma mirë, ku ka ma mirë, ku ka ma mirë se sa në Kosovë.